We want to turn our attention now to the very latest on the Sports Illustrated investigation exposing a corrosive culture, a workplace nightmare in the Dallas Mavericks front office. It's continuing to send shockwaves through the sports world and beyond because the stories of these women could really reflect what's going on in your workplace, in any industry. One of the women at the center of the story is speaking only to News 8, and she is in shadow for fear of retaliation, as Mark Cuban contends he was unaware of the scope of this problem, including acts of sexual misconduct by former president and CEO Terdema Ussery. She also wants to make it clear the players were always respectful and the locker room was a refuge from a toxic office. As for Cuban, the nation knows him from Shark Tank and appearances on business shows as a thoughtful and caring employer. This morning, though, a different story from this former employee. So much of what you said is in contradiction with the person he presents himself to be as a businessman.
Well, isn't Terdema the same way? They have a public persona and they have a private persona. So the public persona is very energetic, very charismatic, but behind the closed doors in their business, it's different.
Is it possible, I'm suggesting here that the HR director and the CEO, Ussery, Terdema Ussery, worked in conjunction to shield Mark from the culture that existed there because it would be a poor reflection of how they managed the office as well. Is that possible?
I guess anything's possible, but don't you own 100% of the team?
But isn't it possible that he is delegating so much to so many people that it's easy to shield him from some of the goings-on that happen in the office?
I think that could be possible, but that's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe because there was so much dysfunction that you didn't know what was happening right underneath your nose. It's hard for me to believe that Ussery was such a predator that you didn't know. I don't know if Mark understands a psychology of a workplace. And I definitely think that he's out of touch with what a workplace should be. If you're going to own 100% of a team, you have to own 100% of a team, and that means you have to pay attention to the business side, which unfortunately he did not.
Isn't it possible that Coach Rick Carlisle and even stars the likes of Dirk Nowitzki would have had knowledge of the way the team CEO and president, Terdema Ussery, behaved when he was in the office, or were they only subjected to that very well-tailored public persona that you talk about?
No, they never would have been, because even when they were at the office, everyone was on their best behavior. It's like this very dysfunctional family, and when someone comes over to dinner, everyone's on their best behavior.
There was that much of a divide between the team and the office.
Right.
And we want to reiterate Mark Cuban's response to our interview. He says this: "We won't comment until the completion of the investigation." He's referencing the internal investigation ongoing by a third party. "I would ask that you suggest to the interviewee that they reach out to the investigators. It would be great if they would share what is said to them as well as on camera." And a lot of questions this morning about why, in this case, this particular employee stayed there for 4 seasons of the Mavs if things were so bad. And I think that might speak to the psychology of the workplace when you're under such intense pressure and trying to cope and keep your job.
We've seen a lot of those comments on your Facebook page today. And one thing that she noted earlier was that, for sure, when being asked in regards to this type of workplace and how women tend to expect it. So perhaps if you've never worked in a place that you know is to be acceptable, or they don't have that sort of behavior, how do you know what's wrong and what isn't wrong?
And that may speak to the larger issue in workplaces everywhere, that this particular former employee said that she had come to expect a certain kind of behavior from men in the workplace that included sexual innuendo. And I think with the Me Too movement, they're coming forward, and there needs to be a zero tolerance policy for any kind of conversations or actions that make people feel uncomfortable.
And she did say eventually she may step out of the shadow.
Along with other women, sort of power in numbers, and so that is something we will follow closely.